Hey, I'm John. I'm a husband, I'm a high school teacher, and I'm attempting to start a small business from scratch, selling a physical product out of the spare bedroom in our small house. It's been a week since my last post, and I figured I would do another update. I think I'll just kind of stick to this format of doing sort of weekly updates on what's going on and what's been happening. So we established that bank account is created, LLC is established, all of the kind of behind the scenes pieces are ready to rock and roll, but I haven't done any behind the scenes of what the actual product is or the effort that it takes to make this and like what all goes into the actual thing that I'll be selling in the business. So for today, I figured I would show you another trial of my kind of infinite trials that I've done to try and make the perfect bath bomb. Today's goals are to utilize the hydraulic press and get that working. I've been able to do it successfully a few times, but it's kind of unstable. So I'm tweaking some things. I'll be showing you kind of the number of tries that I've done of this and showing you sort of my process that I've done so far to get to this point. So without further ado, I'm going to put my mask on. The air compressor is pretty loud, so you'll see me doing all of this, but I'll record the audio separate so you don't have to suffer through all of the crazy noises that happen. So let's dive in. Fantastic. So if you've ever dabbled in bath bombs or making your own products like this, the main ingredients are citric acid and baking soda. Those are what cause the fizz and all of the actual reaction itself. There's a whole slew of other ingredients you can add, and I tried all of them. If you've seen the video that lists all of the ingredients that I purchased and everything I bought to try and do this, you can see all of what was purchased for that. I found that keeping it simpler has made it much better. There was a lot of trial and error with this, and a lot of success and failures inside of all of that. So I kind of reduced things down to sort of the simplest versions that I could while still maintaining the quality that I wanted. What I'm doing right now is experimenting and seeing if mashing up the citric acid helps with the formation of the bath bomb. So I was finding that while making them, I was seeing a lot of kind of like flakiness and like some powderiness that was those crystals coming off of the bath bomb after they had dried. This took me forever with a mortar and pestle, so I'll probably end up buying a like spice grinder or something in the future if this is actually successful and fixes that issue. But I was just curious to see how this would help the overall stability of the bath bomb and the way that it formed. This took me forever, so I put the speed at 5 times for this. But the way that I make these, as you'll kind of see as this goes on, I mix all of the dry ingredients first, and you'll see that process, and then I mix all of the wet ingredients. I mix them together, stir it all up, and then eventually I add water as a binder and I press them together. So what you're seeing now is just me pressing with the mortar and pestle all of that citric acid that goes in there. The ratio of the citric acid to baking soda is a very finicky thing, and you can get a lot of fizz depending on the ratio that you use. A lot of people use a 2-to-1 ratio. I tweaked that a little bit to try and make it a little more fizzy and a little bit better there. So I've got all that in. You can see that powder flowing up into the air, and that's why I wear that mask. That's citric acid, so it does burn a little bit in the lungs. It's not like terrible, but you just don't want to breathe that in every time that you make this stuff. So the citric acid is in. Now I'm adding the baking soda. It kind of works out perfectly. It's really about a scoop of each of those is the ratio that I need. They have different masses, so it's a little different, but it works out perfectly there. So I mix those things together, and then there are a slew of other ingredients that I use to help the bath bomb itself. One of those that you'll see in just a second is going to be kaolin clay. This is really good for your skin, and it helps kind of stabilize the bath bomb. So it helps things kind of hold together and stay firm once it's actually been molded and pressed and all of those things. So my kaolin clay is in, and then you'll see again in just a second. I'll add some SCI, sodium, I forget the actual name of it, but it is a foaming agent, so it helps the bubbles. It's organic, it's all good, and it helps things kind of fizz and bubble and do what they need to do and kind of be more like a good bath bomb should be. And then this thing that I'm adding here is sunflower lecithin. What this does is it's a emulsifying agent, so it allows the oils to actually kind of dissolve and spread out in the water. If you don't have something like this, those oils will just kind of float on top, and then I found that they'll sort of leave like a ring around your tub. They'll stick to the walls of the bathtub, and nobody wants to use a bath bomb like this and then have to like clean their bathtub immediately after. So by adding that sunflower lecithin, it's organic. Again, all of this is organic. That was the whole goal of this. That sunflower lecithin, it lets you just rinse things down the drain, and then you don't have to like scrub your tub after. You can just spray everything down. The last thing I added was just a little bit of cream of tartar. What that does is it is a stabilizing agent, so that also just helps the bath bomb kind of stick together and work well, so that there's not a lot of like cracking or breaking when the bath bomb is formed. So you got to mix those dry ingredients so that they can all be kind of mixed together in uniform. As that's going, I prep the liquid ingredients. So there's only 2 that I'm using in this trial. I've experimented with a bunch of other additives like bubbling agents and things, all organic of course, but I found that they tend to not give the bang for their buck. These bath bombs are incredibly finicky to actually make, and they just don't want to work in terms of like sticking together. The humidity in the room has to be like pretty well controlled when you're making them, and the ratio of wet to dry ingredients is just extremely finicky. So adding those extra agents just really wasn't giving any extra fizz, and in fact a lot of them were taking away fizz. So I've added in just my jojoba oil and then my essential oil. These batches that I make experimentally are pretty much all lavender. So the simplest one is just one oil. I'll use other ones like peppermint eucalyptus and other things that are a blend, but in all of these trial batches I just use the one oil there. So I was experimenting with a kind of different ratio of oils here, and again you can see that powder coming out of that bowl. Just another reason that I wear the mask there. But yeah, so the oil is in, then you've got to let that mix for quite a while to make sure that there's no little beads of extra stuff that are in there, so that it's all uniform and everything dissolves really well when the bath bomb actually dissolves. The hydraulic press is a thing that I've been trying to get to work. You can see the workflow for this has been a little bit clunky. This is just an experimental batch, so once the formula is perfected and everything is kind of honed in, this process will speed up and it will be a bit more fine-tuned. But for now, you can see it's taken some time just to even get to this point, and I haven't even started pressing the bath bombs yet. But that bath bomb press, I've really been wanting to get it to work. It will ultimately speed things up for me so much. The problem is the last batch that I made, I had to use about like 70 psi of force to get the bath bombs to press and hold together. And when that happened, the bath bombs wouldn't float in the bathtub. They would just kind of sink to the bottom. And the whole appeal really of using a bath bomb is to have it float and spin around and disperse all of the bubbles and everything on top of the water. So you don't want like a lame bath bomb that just sinks to the bottom. All the stuff would still end up in the water and be fine, but it doesn't have the same curb appeal as a bath bomb that floats and spins and does all of those good things. So I'm really trying to mix it up well here, and then you'll see in a minute I'll add some water. That'll be the binding agent that will start the reaction between the citric acid and the baking soda, just enough to get them to harden and solidify together. So that ratio, the amount of water you use, is really the most important part at the end of all of this when you're trying to form these things and get them to work together. So I'm experimenting here. I'll be using a bit more water than I have in the past. I think if I can get it a little wetter, the bath bomb the press will have an easier time kind of compacting it and squishing it together. And then hopefully it won't stick to the press and it will form a nice solid bath bomb. So you really want to let these mix for a long time to get all of those things evenly dispersed. Again, the goal for all of this was to use all organic ingredients. I wanted this to be 100% organic with not any sort of chemical in there that was not an organic ingredient. That's kind of part of the big selling point of these. And I know there's a lot of those on Etsy and things as well already. But these are turning out really, really nice. And I think there's going to be better than anything that you're going to see in the organic market online. So I'm pretty pleased with the way that this batch turned out in particular. So I've got the oils mixed and everything is in there. Now I've got my spray bottle of water. The method for this, I imagine I'll also tweak this as I get into sort of more mass producing things. but for now I give a couple spritzes and then I mix with my hands. In the future, I'll probably hone in once I know the exact amount of water that I want to use. I'll probably just measure out that water and then keep it in the mixer and add it in that way. You do want to be mixing constantly as you add the water because it starts the reaction, and you don't want big clumps of reacted baking soda and citric acid and then other areas where none of it has reacted, because you need all of it to react uniformly so that the bath bomb forms really nice. So I give a couple of spritzes and then I mix. It's a pretty intensive process. Again, we'll probably reform that in the future, which is one of the goals. So for now, as I'm still experimenting, I'm still kind of doing things very manually and working on just getting a product that's functional. After we reach that point, though, the goal will be to expedite this process and see how we can make things more efficient and make things easier to reproduce. End game, like long term down the road, the goal would be to have other people making these. So I would want this process to be very streamlined and efficient and easy to follow, and kind of minimize the possible errors that could occur. So I've added a couple spritzes. Again, with this batch in particular, I'm trying to get it a little extra wet to see if that helps with the press process. They say online, if you go to any like channel that tells you how to make bath bombs, they say that you're looking for the consistency of like slightly wet sand. So I'll show you when I clump this together, you can drop it back into the formula and it sort of stays as a big clump. That's a sign that you've sort of reached a good consistency for that. But I'm taking it just a little bit further to experiment and see how getting it a little bit wetter works with the actual press itself. So lots of mixing, a pretty time intensive and energy intensive process, but it ends up being worth it in the long run. So spritz, mix. In a second here, I will head over to the press and then get the mold filled, and I'll show you what that looks like. So there's the mold. This press was listed on my list of things that I purchased in the beginning of all of this. I never really did get it to work until very recently, so that's been an exciting development. You fill it up, there's a little line inside. You fill it up to about that line. I'll show you here, almost towards the very top, and then you put it in. There's 2 red buttons there, so you have to press both of them, which is a safety precaution. That way both your hands have to be away from the press and you can't get anything caught inside of there. I am trying to press these at 35 or 40 psi, so much lower. Again, the goal is to not press it as much so that it hopefully actually floats in the tub. And you can see this actually worked. So adding the extra water and getting it a little bit more wet did result in a bath bomb that actually stuck together and didn't stick to the press, which is a double win there. So that was really a good sign, very encouraging, which is why you see me celebrating there. My current experimental trials yield me about 2 fully functioning bath bombs and then another half. This one I ended up getting almost 3 out of it. You'll see, so I'll be able to test all of these and then make some notes and then see how I want to tweak the process further. So as I made these, I set them to dry in little half presses that I have, manual presses. I set them out to dry overnight, and then I either shrink wrap them in biodegradable shrink wrap, or I use them for testing and other things, which is what I'll do with these bath bombs here. So I've got a couple of functioning bath bombs. These ones, they ended up cracking a little bit on the sort of border between the 2 halves where the top and the bottom connect around that little rim. I think I didn't quite fill the press all the way to the line. I think I need just a little bit more powder in there. I think the 35-40 psi is going to work well, but I'll test these, and then in my next video I'll talk about kind of the results of these bath bombs and whether or not they were functional or not. But we're getting pretty close to actually having a product that's ready to sell, which is exciting. I've been doing a lot of what you're seeing here, just messing around in the back, trying different formulas, tweaking things. I have at least 15 to 20 different iterations of different tweaks that I've tried, and different versions of this, different ways I've pressed it, different ways I've added water, different ingredients, combinations that I've added. So I have a ton of different ways that I've tried to do this, and this one seems like it's one that's actually maybe a possibility to be the one. So I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to test them and see how they hold up and how they actually perform in the bath. So again, I'll make a video kind of talking through whether or not this was successful and the changes that I need to make from there. So I'll show you now my little drying rack where I place them and the ones that I have on there already. You can see some of the past trials that failed, and then this current batch on top of that in front of those. So I'll pick up the camera and turn that around and show you those in just a second. Excellent. So there they are, just kind of drying. I'll leave them in those little steel molds for at least 24 hours. I'll flip them around, and then they're good to test. So I'll see you in the next video. We'll talk about whether this worked or not.